Subject is going to be kind of two services. One is for students, and one is, I think, more for instructors. So we're going to start with the student one first, which is tutor.com, and then we're going to talk about turnitin.com. So tutor.com is a, let me get my screen moved here, is a 24/7 tutoring service for our online learners. So anyone enrolled in an online course has access to this. I would say automatically. To them, it's automatically. I have to go in and add in each time we start a new session. But any online learners have access to tutor.com. And one of the reasons we like to include this as some of our training is to remind you all, as instructors, that this service is out there. We pay for it. And if students don't use it, then it doesn't really do anyone any good. So we like to remind you that it's there, and that's what it's there for, is for them to use. So when a student logs in to, or when a student clicks on the link, so at the top of every online course, there's a link to tutor.com. This is the page that they get. And it's just a simple sign-in with their username. It's the same username as everything else. So basically, their SNU, the first part of their email address. And then the password, if they don't know what the password is, it's right down here. I'll kind of circle it in the instructions. So it's SNU Tutor 12 unless they've changed it. So of course, I highly encourage them to change it, and it even says that there. I don't know how many of them do, but you know, if they ever forget, they can also click the forgot password, and I can reset it for them. So this just kind of gives you an idea when they go to it. This is what is going to come up, and then whoops, that's the. I just clicked on. This is how it comes up. Let me log in real quick, and I'll show you just kind of what they see once they get in. There. It's not hard to do this way back here. Oh. Okay, so when your students log in, this is their view. So they tell what they need help with, and you can see, and I've got a slide we'll look at here in a minute that shows all the different categories. This is what they can choose from. And then within some of these, there's specific subjects. So if I choose, for example, history, then I can come over here and choose U.S., European, or world. Okay? And then they type in a question, and then they just click on this green Connect Now button, and they're connected to a tutor. And another option they have, a lot of our students use tutor.com for writing. And I know probably all of you who have taught courses would agree there's usually at least one student, if not more, that could use some help with their writing. So with writing, we have kind of two options. They can come here and get immediate help. And you'll notice, like here, there's a place for them to attach their file. So they would just choose topic, let's say writing, and type a question, and then attach a file. Or if they don't want to do it, you know, real time with a tutor, they can click up here on this drop-off essay, and they can actually kind of like dropping it off on a desk. So they can drop it off, and then within 24 hours, they'll have a response from the tutor. So they kind of have two different options with writing. I don't know if all of them are familiar with that, but, you know, a lot of times we want to help our students. That's just the nature of being an instructor, and that's what we should do. But remember, this service is out there because sometimes you may not have time to help them with sentence structure. And you know, there might be times when you need to remember that, you know, there's help available. Yes, is there a question?
Yeah, Gwen is asking, would you be able to supply her with a topic selection list?
Yeah, it's gonna be in the presentation coming up. So let's go back to the presentation, and I'll show you that. So these are what we offer right now. So in the science realm, we have these topics: chemistry, earth science, biology, anatomy, and physiology, and physics. The only option that isn't 24/7 is nursing. So nursing, they do have help between 7 p.m. and 11 p.m., and that is Central Standard Time. Sunday through Thursday. So that's the only one that's not 24/7. Okay, and then there's English, and there's grammar and literature in that category, writing, and so sometimes, it depends on which one they select, those can be very, very similar options there. And then there's the drop-off essay review. And then in addition to that, there is some options in business, so accounting and statistics and history, I just showed you that. And then there's also computer skills. This one's fairly new, but they will help them with just basics on how to use Word and Excel. Well, I say basics, just whatever they need help with. So kind of keep in mind, there's a lot of things offered, and again, I would say what I see as using the most is the writing part. But there's, other things offered. Any questions about that? Yeah.
Quinn says, do you think mythology would fall under English?
Actually, I think some of her students have used it, and I do think that they've been either using it under the writing or the English part. But I have seen a couple of them come through.
Great.
Great. Any other questions so far? Okay, so let's talk a little bit about how to encourage your learners to use this service. So again, we do have a link at the top of all of our online courses. It's kind of, I think it kind of gets lost in a way because it's right under like the syllabus and all that. It's usually the last link right before week 1 starts. So, it's there, whether your student clicks on that or not, that's up to them. So I would encourage you, when you do your welcome to the course, or if you're in a program, the orientation course, I would encourage you to just remind them about that. Hey, if you're having some issues, we do have tutoring available, and the links at the top of the course. Maybe if you're doing a screencast for your video, you can show them where it's at. It never hurts to remind them that it's there, because sometimes they don't know, and if they don't know, they're definitely not going to use it. Also, some of our courses have implemented assignments that require them to use tutor.com. So as part of the grading rubric, they have to send it through tutor.com. And the nice thing about that is that I can run a report anytime and tell you who's used it. And it's a real quick, easy report. It doesn't take me any time at all, so you aren't going to bother me by asking me to do it. But if you want to know, if you want to have an assignment that requires it and you want to know who used it, I can tell you real quickly who's used it. So what I found is usually in the courses that have required it, we get repeat customers because they try it, they see how easy it is to use, they get the help they need, so the next time they have an assignment, they're gonna go back to that and get some more help. With hopefully eventually they'll get to where they don't need it, but that's what it's there for. So as instructors, if you all can encourage the use, we've had fairly good usage of the service, but I know we could have more. So every year we purchase a certain number of hours, and we've not gone over that yet. So we always kind of end the year with some leftovers. So if y'all can encourage that, that would be great. And it could take some of your workload away with trying to help answer some of the questions that the tutor could help with.
Laura?
Yes.
Didn't you say there were a couple courses and like the first assignment, it's a part of that assignment, the student has to use tutor.com, and then after that it seems like the students turning in better assignments throughout the course.
They've kind of gotten into the habit of doing it, yes, exactly.
So I thought that was neat.
Yeah, and one thing that's not on my slide per se, but I usually get this question is, who are the tutors? Well, when we found when we were researching, we've had this service for now about 3 years. When we researched it, tutor.com really came out ahead of a lot of the other competitors that we looked at, because they have a real rigorous screening program. They have tests that the tutors have to take before they're even, eligible to tutor. And then once they've kind of passed those tests, they put them with a mentor for however long that person needs before the mentor decides that they're okay to move forward. They're real big about not just giving answers. So one of the things that kind of sold us too on them was when they said, we don't train our tutors just to hand feed spoon feed the answers to the students. We really try to train them to make the students think. And when you look at some of the transcripts that go, every tutoring session is captured in a transcript. When you look at those, you can really tell that that's what they do. At the end of every session, the students ask to fill out a survey, and I get any negative feedback that the tutor got from the student. And in 3 years, I can probably count on one hand how many of those I've got. So students seem to be, fairly pleased with it. The couple of the ones I got were system issues, which I really think were student issues, because I went to the tutor.com and they hadn't had any issues. So I really think, in a nutshell, there's not a lot of complaints about it. Okay, so back to kind of the presentation usage. I just talked about the hours. We do purchase a certain number of hours each year. And if we get close to using our hours, which we haven't had this issue yet, but there are ways within the system that we can limit, like each student can have 2 hours of tutoring, and then once they've used it, that's all they get. We haven't had to do that, but if usage really picks up, that might be something, and that would just encourage students to use it when they need it. Not just, well, I don't know how to figure this out, so I'm going to just go to the tutor. We don't want them to be, dependent on that, but we want them to definitely use the service for things that are important. Yeah.
Gwen Hackler says that she had a student tell her that they would only edit page 1 of their 5-page paper. And so should she check that out? Is that like a limitation?
We can check it out. It might have been. I've seen some of them. I don't know the situation on hers, but I've seen some of them because they don't just want to spoon feed all of it to them. I've seen some of the sessions where they'll say, okay, now this is what you need to do on the rest of this. Moving forward, because the tutors do try to be cognizant of their time as well, because we're paying by the hour, and they're not going to sit on with someone for 5 hours. So they'll kind of, what I've seen at least happen is they'll kind of get them started, and then if that student gets to page 2 and has no idea what to do, they can always go back and get, and I've seen them go back, and there's a way the student can mark in their login, like favorite tutors, ones they've liked and stuff like that. So that might be what happened. I don't know without looking at it specifically.
That does make sense with that student because they had major writing issues. And it's like you say, I mean, they're not just going to sit there and do the work for them. I mean, they want them to learn too.
Right.
Yeah.
And in something like that, that might be a good one to be like the drop-off. Instead of trying to do the live, like if someone does have a whole paper with issues, and maybe encourage them to try the drop-off, because I think they kind of go in and make some comments to get them. But they still don't really say, write it like this, for example. Okay, so a couple of features in Tutor that are new. One is the early alert, and this is great because it goes along with one of our Title III grant objectives this year, is early alert for students. And this early alert is from the tutor. So if a tutor's working with someone and they just really feel like they aren't getting or understanding what they're saying, they will do an alert that tells, it'll come to me, but then I can pass it on to the instructor, that this student really doesn't understand anything I'm telling you. Okay, so right now that's still fairly new, and I haven't had any yet, but that feature is there. The other feature is the transcripts. So in the past, if we wanted a transcript of a session, I had to go to my rep with tutor.com and they'd have to pull it for me. Well, now in the reports I pull, anytime I can pull a transcript. So, for example, I've had a couple of situations where there was some grade discrepancies and where the student felt like, they did what the tutor said to do, and then they got counted off on their grade, so the instructor asked for the transcript to make a judgment on it. So keep that in mind, if you ever have a situation like that where you're wondering what the tutor told them, or the student saying, well, the tutor told me to do this, and now you're saying this is wrong, I can pull transcripts, and if we do find that maybe the tutor told them wrong or whatever, I can take that back to tutor.com and let them know. Because they want to know stuff like that if, for some reason, their tutors are not giving out good answers. So, and so just to let you know how it looks, this is kind of a report I can pull. Student names have been covered up to protect their identity, but this is just an example of a report, and this is the early alert feature here. So if any of those said true, there would be a link for me to look at to see what happened, and then I would pass that on to the instructor. And you can see just from this little piece of report that I've pulled, you can see most of our usage, subject usage, is definitely with writing. So you can see a lot of these did the drop-off and essay review. Now, just as simple as it is to see the early alert, right here is how simple it is to get a transcript. So this is something I can pull for you. You won't have the rights to pull it, but you can just come to me and I can pull it anytime for you. And then the transcript looks something like this. So, and I've also grayed out the student name to protect them. But you can see this is just a little bitty piece of the transcript, because I didn't want to put the whole thing on here, but you kind of see they capture everything that they have. So like where this part where it says need help with an APA parenthetical for a paper, that would have been the question that the student wrote when they were typing it in. Then the tutor comes on, and this is what they say, and then you kind of see what they're talking about. But you can, if I need to pull this for any of your students, I can.
This tells me something I was wondering. So they could give them a link to, say, the rubric for the assignment, and they could look it over and say, okay, you're supposed to have 5 sources, and you only have 3. They do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, they can.
So that would make it easier for them to understand the assignment,
right,
and for the student to, okay.
Right.
That's what I was really wondering.
Yeah, right. Yeah, they can, and sometimes it might be that they have to upload a file, like save that on a file or something if it's not already like that. But yeah. And I've seen some where the tutor will say, I need a little more information about your assignment so I understand what you're trying to do.
Good.
All right, so really that's tutor.com. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them for you. Just remember it's out there, and remember if you need specifics, I can pull.
So I say, suppose I say, okay, we're just going to do a first drop essay, tutor.com. They all say, okay, and then they post their assignments up to Moodle. How do I know they did it?
You can just send me a quick email, and I can email you back and show who.
Okay.
So that report that I showed in the screen before this, it's a real simple report. I put dates in, and
so it's not burdensome for me to say, give me a report on everybody on this assignment.
No.
And just click in it. Okay, that's probably what I'll do.
And what I usually do, since I'm not always going to know who your students are, I'll just send you a report that shows all students that have used it, and then you can kind of pick out yours so you'll know which one is which. Yeah. And I usually just ask you to give me a time frame, like if it's a week or 2 weeks or whatever. So. All right. Any other questions? Do we have any from our remote people? All right.
Is the turnaround time, if they do the drop-off thing, is the turnaround time like about an hour?
It's 24 hours for a max. Now, I think they can come back faster than that, but that's their... Now, if they need real time, like if they're on a crunch, it's 10 p.m. and my assignment's due at midnight and I need someone to look at this, they need to just go through sign in and go through the regular ones. The drop-off's more if I have some time to wait, but 24 hours is when... That's the cutoff. They should have an answer in 24 hours.
I don't have a teaching assistant, but this is almost all, I think.
Right. And I think, that's why we like to, about once a year, kind of remind people about it, because it can save an instructor some time, and when you're reading papers and going, this is off, the next time you have a paper, really maybe even just suggest to that particular student, try this out, there's help. Again, if we don't do it, it doesn't do us any good to pay for it. All All right, any other questions, comments? Have any of you guys have students that have used tutor.com? Has anyone? I know some of Gwen Heffler's have. I've seen them recently, but all right. Well, and if you ever are hearing feedback from your students that are using a tutor that's negative, please let me know. Because like I say, I get the surveys when they're negative right after the fact, but if it's 2 days later and the student says, well, and just let me know because I'll address that with tutor.com. They're very interested in knowing that as well. All right, so let's go on to the next thing, which is Turnitin.com. So tutor.com is really can be helpful for instructors, as we were just talking about. But Turnitin.com is a service that helps identify plagiarism. And we know, especially in the online environment, but even in face-to-face, students think they can turn things in and will never know where they got their information from. So when you have a Turnitin.com assignment, this will help you know. Appropriate assignments for Turnitin.com really are the ones that you are looking for something unique. So if it's an assignment that everyone's going to come up with the same answer, this is not going to really benefit you to use it. So typically, what do you guys think of when you think of a Turnitin.com assignment? What are some of I know some of y'all have used it. What are some of the assignment types you've used it for? Anyone?
I use it for a comparison paper on music videos.
Okay, yeah, so like a comparison paper. I typically think anytime they're researching and coming up with an answer, this is really when you want to use it. There's a little bit of quirks to it in Moodle, and that's why if you're going to use it, it's always nice to make sure that it's going to give you results. Otherwise, you're going to spend some extra time setting things up, and it really won't benefit you. The other part of Turnitin.com is its grading features. It allows you to kind of grade within the paper. And I know you can do that in other programs as well, but if you've had it run through their database, you can just kind of continue on with that in here, and that will transfer into Moodle. And their database, there's millions and billions of sources in their database, and that's why they're kind of the leader in this realm, and maybe one of the only ones in this realm because they kind of got the market targeted there. All right, so let's look at some things with Turnitin.com. If you teach a course that has a Turnitin.com assignment, you're going to see when you sign into your course that there is a hidden assignment that says usually something like this, TII setup or something like that. And what's in that grayed out part is your assignment instructions. When a course is reset, here's kind of the quirk with Turnitin.com. When a course gets reset for someone to teach the next session of it, the Turnitin.com assignments go away. So if you haven't copied your instructions, the next time you go to teach that course, you have to kind of reinvent the wheel. So we always advise when we're in the courses we help develop to have kind of a placeholder for that assignment, and then once the course is reset, putting in the actual Turnitin.com assignment. And you can tell it's a Turnitin.com assignment because it has their little logo thing right here. And when you set this up in Moodle, it's just one of your assignment types, is Turnitin.com. All right, so that's kind of the quirk in Moodle, but other than that, there's not a whole lot of other quirks with it. So then your students will turn their papers or whatever it is into Turnitin.com, and for you to see what they've turned in, you'll click on the assignment, like you were going to go in to grade it, and then you'll click on this thing called a submission inbox, and that will show you everything that's been submitted. And then inbox looks something like this. Again, students' names have been grayed out to protect their identities. So, and this is just an example of what your inbox would look like. And kind of the first thing you want your eyes to be drawn to is this column here that says similarity. because this is tutor.com telling you how similar this particular artifact is to things in their billions and billions of record database. So when you see something like 72% or 100%, as Mike was saying, he had someone with 100%, when you see something with a real high percentage, that's a red flag. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean your student has plagiarized per se, so you really got to look into the document and see, because maybe 72% of their paper is in quotes, which I realize would not be acceptable, but they could have cited their sources. So, you know, the number here is a heads up. I look at it as a heads up, but you really got to dig in a little deeper to find out what they, you know, what they actually did. So when you click on you can click any of these links to get into it. You'll get to something that looks like this. And there's some different facets of the reports from Turnitin.com, and this is the Originality Report, and you can kind of see that right up here. And so what Turnitin does is it highlights in the paper the things that are potentially plagiarized, and as the instructor, you really have to kind of go and look and see if it really is or not. So it's just going to mesh these things up against their database and look for similarities, and then you have to really kind of decide whether it's, you know, really plagiarized or not. Sometimes it's just the combination of words they've used, and sometimes there's no other way to say it, so that's why it's going to show up on the report. But you can see, and I know this is kind of small because this was a big screen to copy, but the different colors have numbers assigned to them, and then over here you'll notice you have colors and numbers. So whatever, like I think this is number 26, over here is number 26, so this would tell me it's less than 1% like this source. Now less than 1%, you know, that probably means they didn't copy the whole paper, but I could also then click on this source and take a look at it and investigate. So, you know, this particular paper I think had over 60 matches on that side. So sometimes that can be, you know, a little time consuming. But if you pull this up and this number over here was, you know, pretty high, like 50, 60%, it's probably a good chance that student has copied. Okay. So that's one feature of it. Yeah.
So, and looking at the percentages there, is the 72%, is that the sum of all of the?
Yes.
Okay.
Right. The 72% is the whole picture.
Okay.
Yeah. So, you know, kind of investigate that. I know on some of the assignments I've done, you know, I'll say something like, you have to have less than 20% on your Turnitin report. Well, if I get one that's 30%, then I look at it, you know, you have to kind of judge, you know, why is it showing up?
The way you spoke, it sounds like they get to see their percent match too. Is that right?
Yeah, I believe the students can see it as well. Yeah. So hopefully, if they see that, they maybe redo it real quick before you catch it. But yeah, you would think, but they don't always. Okay. The other thing I want to show you about Turnitin, which is can be kind of a time saver, is the grading. So one feature of it, this is called the Grademark, and you'll notice up here, you know, in the last screen we were under Originality, this is the Grademark. And you can come in here and actually grade your paper within Turnitin.com. And you can highlight parts that are questionable and put your own comment like this. This is just an example. Or there's quick comments over here, or I think they're called Quickmarks, like the name of this title. And you know, if you have like an improper citation and you have 30 of them, it's a lot easier to highlight and click improper citation than to type that out. And you can make your own, like these ones that say Untitled. Those are comments the instructor has made, and they just haven't gone in and titled them. But if you find over and over again you're making the same comment over and over again, then you can kind of set that up as part of your template so that you just have to click on it and then you don't have to type it every time.
And once you put it in there and save it, it's still in there.
Yeah.
I go to the next assignment that I've used Turnitin with, and those same marks that I created are still in there.
Yeah.
It's something that I would say or use as a remark. You've done this, or you haven't done this.
Yeah, I believe it's tied to your login, so yeah. And then the other thing, I don't know if a lot of people have used this, but you can also, down here there's this little kind of like a talking bubble, I think that's what I call it, I don't know the proper term, but you can make general comments. So if you want to just give them just a general comment on their entire paper, you can click down there. You can type it in, or you have up to 3 minutes of a voice recording. So if you would rather just talk to them, you have 3 minutes to say what you want to say. So I don't know if anyone's tried that or not, but that was something I hadn't seen in my previous usage of Turnitin.com. So, again, it's really pretty simple to use. The main thing is you have to remember in Moodle that there's going to be that placeholder for the assignment that you have to kind of set up once you're active in your course. But questions, comments?
Gwen has a comment. She says she uses those marks repeatedly and they associate with broad categories in the grading form.
Okay, yeah. Oh, and one thing I didn't show you is right up here next to the percentage here, you can actually just type their grade in here. So.
And it transfers to Moodle?
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Yeah. So you can kind of take care of everything in one fell swoop.
I do have a question.
When you create
I
it,
use this
tell
to
how
grade
much it's
papers
worth.
this week,
Uh-huh.
and now my
Then you-
students cannot see their grades, and they
Well,
can't see
so my
my
assignment's worth 50
comments. So
points, and I
that's
get
what I'm looking
47. Oh, that's something I'm doing
Turnitin.com
second
or
there, and it just
Moodle?
transfers it. It just
Well,
goes
they go
straight
to
in.
Moodle, and then they go to
No, and they
the
can't see your
submission. I'm not
comments.
able to see my comments.
Hmm.
So
I'm not sure on that one. Has anyone else had that issue where the students couldn't see their comments or grade on a Turnitin? I haven't run into that. So we may need to do some troubleshooting on that one. See.
I was going to ask, how can the students get back to their paper to see or hear the comments?
Well, they should be able, it's just like a submission in Moodle. So they should be able to just pull that back up,
Okay.
just like they could if they just submitted like a Word doc or something. So they should be able to. So I'm not sure.
yeah,
We might need to look at your course. Like we may have to go in and just kind of see what it's doing. All right, and that's really all I have for